We don't spend a lot of time with cameras. We're just going to get enough of a camera set up in our scene so that we can render this if you want to do animation. Now, you can use a camera if you're rendering out still images. You don't need to, but you can. You probably want to use a camera if you're going to do some animation. Rendering from the viewports is pretty limited. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. My background is not with cameras, and since we're doing game objects that we're going to eventually learn how to export and make these objects for games, we're not going to spend as much time on cameras. But I've got a scene here. You can open this from my folder. It's 720. And I've got some lights set up in it. I'll render the scene so you can see what it looks like. Nothing special. It's just a tank with a shadow on a plane. I'm going to go ahead and select these lights and hide them, just so that we can see what's going on with our scene. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we're closer to our tank. Now, cameras are located under Create, Cameras. I'm going to make a free camera to start with. To make your camera, all you need to do is click in your scene and place it. You'll see the camera shows up here. The blue area is the area the camera is pointing. So in this case, I'm going to move my camera and rotate it to point at the tank. And then in my perspective view, I'm going to hit C on my keyboard, or you can drop this down and go to, remember where it is, Views, Camera 1, and there's my camera. Now when I move my camera, you'll see that the camera view is going to move with it, obviously, because that's what the camera is. There we go. We'll kind of roll this guy around a little bit, get a good view of this. And all I'm going to do is position this camera so that I'm looking at the tank. Don't worry about all this rolling that it's doing. Oops. Zoom out a little bit so I can see my camera a little bit better. Now I've rolled my camera a little bit too much. You can use these controls down here. Watch these controls change when I right click on my camera viewport. See, I get different ones. This viewport, or this control here, which looks like little headphones, is the roll camera. See how my camera is rolling over in these viewports? And I can just kind of set it in this port. So it's a lot like the rotate tool has been all along that we've been using. This one, is little Mickey Mouse hand, is the truck camera. That's moving my camera. You can see it there. This one is the dolly camera, which will put it closer or farther back from the camera. This is my field of view, which is actually zooming. See how my field of view indicator here is changing with this one. And this one here is orbit camera, and that's going to allow me to move around the object, which can be kind of useful. So if I render this, I'll get a different view of my camera or my scene from my camera. Now if we go to a modify with camera selected, you'll see you get a whole lot of different parameters for your camera. The ones I tend to use the most are lens. I can change the lens setting right here. The field of view. Or you can use these stock lenses, and you can click through them to see if there's anything in there that you like. We'll just go with, say, 50 millimeter for this. You can change your camera setting here to a target camera if you want, and we'll go ahead and do that. A target camera, which you can also access up here under Create Cameras Target, so we could have made this originally. But a target camera gives me a target. I can move this target to the tank, so it's right on the tank. Move down a little bit. And now when I move my camera, you can see that it's going to, oops, wrong thing. When I move my camera, right click on the camera viewport and move my camera, it's going to orbit around that target. Otherwise, it's orbiting around where the camera lens is targeting. A little bit harder to figure out, So if you want to use a target camera, you can do that. Okay, I can also link the target to the main tank object, and I can follow the main tank object if I wanted to. Now, I'm going to go right-click in this scene. I'm going to say unhide by name, and what I want, I believe it's the box. Let me unhide this. No, I don't. Okay, I thought there was a dummy object in the scene. We'll make a dummy. We're going to go to Create, Helpers, Dummy Object, and I'm going to drag a dummy object out in my scene and position it right over the top of my tank. And it probably will work a little better if you put the dummy object so that the ground of the dummy object's on the plane in the scene. Now, a dummy object doesn't render. It's not a box. It's kind of like a big invisible helper object. You can see nothing's really changed in my scene. But I could, let's see here. I'm going to grab everything inside here, so all my objects, including the camera target, I'm going to link those to my dummy object. There we go. So now when I move the dummy object, everything will move with the dummy object, and the camera target, which has been targeted inside the camera and linked to the dummy object, will move with the dummy object. So you can basically kind of tie your camera to your object, move it through your scene, and the camera will always be looking at the object. It's not a great way to do a render, but it's a quick way if you want to just show your tank moving through the scene. So that covers our dummy objects, different types of cameras, a few of the camera parameters. Feel free to play around in there if you want with the camera parameters. But that's about all we're going to cover on cameras in this class, just enough so that you can make an animation if you want to.